I always knew that this little girl wouldn't have an easy life. My mother-in-law, Teresa, had always said that I, Camilla, wasn't born to be a mother, but she didn't keep those thoughts to herself. With a bitter smile on her face, she unleashed her venom during my baby Valeria's funeral. Before I could respond, my sister-in-law, just as cruel, commented with a tone of contempt that seemed calculated. It's almost comical how she insists on bringing such fragile children into the world. But what could you expect from someone so weak? That was the straw that broke the camel's back. There was no more respect or dignity, only my fury. I felt my body burning and, unable to contain myself, I screamed. "Shut up, witches!" My voice echoed throughout the room. "I don't want your rotten energy here, not at my daughter's funeral. Leave now or I'll drag you out of here by the skin of my teeth." My husband Felipe had heard everything and was furious, but deep down I knew that this scene wouldn't end there. Teresa and her daughter would pay dearly for every cruel word, every judgmental look. Welcome to the Deserved Revenge channel. If you are enjoying this story, please subscribe to the channel and like the video to learn about future stories. I am Camilla and this is the story of how my once peaceful suburban life collapsed like a house of cards in a way I could never have imagined. Ever since I was little, I always dreamed of being a mother. The image of a house full of laughter, of little hands calling out to me as mom, a home built on unconditional love, was my greatest wish. But in real life, dreams are not always achievable. My health was always an obstacle, a shadow that followed me and limited me. Constant weakness, breathing problems. Every time I tried to move forward, something would hold me back. The doctors always made it clear that motherhood might be unattainable for me, but I did not give up. When I met Felipe, I felt hope. He was everything I needed, kind, loving, and full of optimism. With him, that dream of family grew stronger. However, it soon became clear that not everyone around her shared that enthusiasm for me. From the first glance Teresa gave me, I knew I would be judged. Her cold eyes analyzed me with silent disdain, as if she expected my failure. I didn't need to say much. Every glance said that to her, I would never be worthy of her son. "Do you really think you can build a family, Camilla, with all those health problems?" Teresa's words came out with a smile that seemed sweet, but each syllable was like a sharp blade. The real message was as clear as day. To her, I would never be capable of being a mother, much less a good one for Felipe. I tried to ignore it, to focus on what Felipe and I wanted together, on our bubble of hope. But it was hard to escape that dark and constant presence that infiltrated every family gathering, every glance disguised as sympathy. Teresa saw me as fragile and never missed an opportunity to remind me of that, even with her calculated silence. Sometimes Philippe's optimism exasperated me. He seemed immune to his mother's disdain, blindly confident in our future. Faced with every obstacle, he always believed that we would find a solution, while I drowned in the constant fear of failing as a mother and of not being able to prove Teresa wrong. Everything changed that afternoon. We were sitting in the living room. The atmosphere was so silent that the ticking of the clock sounded like a relentless counter, measuring each second towards the next failure. Felipe, with that optimistic smile, turned to me and said, "What if we look for another doctor, Camilla? Are you sure there is a specialist who can help us?" I sighed deeply, the weight of years of failed attempts pressing down on my chest. "I don't know, Felipe," I murmured, trying to hold back my tears. "It seems like we've already seen every possible specialist." He took my hand, his gaze filled with stubborn hope. "We can't give up, Camilla. We're in this together, remember?" Yes, we were together, but sometimes his strength was like a double-edged sword that made me feel weaker. I clung to him like an anchor in a stormy sea, unaware that the real storm was yet to come. Then the doorbell rang, breaking the tense moment. And there she was, Teresa, the queen of indifference, sauntering in unceremoniously with that air of superiority. She brushed past me as if I were a piece of furniture and got straight to the point. Felipe, we need to talk privately. Her eyes met mine with that subtle, almost elegant disdain that only a mother-in-law like her could display. Reluctantly, Felipe followed her into the kitchen, and I unintentionally overheard everything. Teresa's voice was as cold as ice. Felipe, you have to think about your future. This situation with Camila is going nowhere. Felipe tried to keep his voice firm. Mom, I love Camila. We are not going to give up on our dream of having a family. But Teresa did not back down. And when he spoke his next words, I felt like he was stabbing me in the chest with an invisible dagger. You have to think about family. I want grandchildren. Maybe it's time to consider other options. That night, as we lay in bed, Felipe wrapped his arms around me and whispered, "Don't listen to her, Camila. We're going to prove her wrong." The days dragged on forever, but they were transformed into renewed hope. When we finally received the news we had been waiting for so long, a positive pregnancy test. We were on cloud nine as if we had won the war, but the battle was still far from over. During a family dinner, Teresa, always ready to poison our happiness, launched her attack. A baby with all of Camilla's health problems. Let's see how long it lasts. The knot in my throat grew stronger, but Felipe, trying to be the peacemaker he always was, squeezed my hand under the table. Everything will be okay, my love, he whispered to me in an attempt to comfort me. But the discomfort that Teresa brought was like a dense shadow, ever present over us. In the following months we tried to keep going, happiness and fear hand in hand. Even Teresa appeared in the baby room, feigning excitement with a smile that didn't reach her eyes, those cold, calculating eyes. Take good care of yourself, Camila. We wouldn't want anything to happen to the baby, she said in a tone so sweet it was venomous. My instincts were screaming at me that something was wrong, but I kept smiling and thanked her, keeping my facade intact. As the due date approached, Felipe and I threw ourselves into preparing the baby's room. We painted the walls a soft blue and set up the crib, ready to welcome our little miracle. With every detail we prepared, I wished intensely that he would be the symbol of our victory. He's not perfect. And Felipe said, his eyes shining with happiness. You read everything we ever dreamed of, I replied, even as a trepidation grew softly within me. But our dreams were shattered. Complications arose during childbirth, and I was rushed into surgery. When I awoke, I received the news that shattered my heart. Our son had not survived. Felipe and I held each other, consumed by the irreparable loss, crying for the baby we would never know. Amidst that pain, Teresa's words echoed in my mind. I told you. It was as if fate was playing in their favor, mocking us. Still, we refused to let despair overcome us. Hand in hand, we faced that devastating duel, determined to show that, despite the tragedy, we would continue forward. But something inside me had changed profoundly, and deep down I knew that this battle with Teresa was only just beginning. What she didn't know was that I wouldn't just be a survivor. I would be the force that would settle the score. Our love is stronger than anything, Camila. We will get through this together. Philippe's words, they sounded soft, yet firm, like a balm on the pain that burned in my soul. That journey of pain and hope taught us the true meaning of resilience and showed the strength of our unconditional love. But even as we tried to move forward, we knew our story was far from over. More challenges would come, but we were ready, hand in hand, willing to face whatever came. Months passed and the loss was still an open wound. Then, when hope seemed distant, a miracle happened. I was pregnant again. The joy we felt was indescribable, as if a ray of sunshine had pierced the darkest storm. After years of pain, here we were, blessed with a new chance at happiness. The house was filled with an almost palpable joy. Felipe, his eyes lit up, exclaimed, "Can you believe it, Camilla? We're going to be parents." This time the months passed in the blink of an eye. Every day we got closer to meeting our little miracle. We painted the room a soft pink and spent hours there dreaming about the future and planning life with our daughter. Finally, the big day arrived. After intense hours of labor, we brought our daughter Valeria into the world. She was perfect. Her little hands, her soft cries, every detail filled our hearts with immense love, a love that could not fit in our chests. Quote, "Or we made it, Camilla is here and she's perfect," Felipe said with tears of pure joy in his eyes as he held our little girl for the first time. At that moment, our family seemed complete. Happiness was like a delicate bubble, beautiful, yet terrifyingly fragile. Valeria's innocent giggles filled our home, slowly healing the scars we carried. But deep down I felt there was a shadow that never left us alone, always lurking. And that shadow didn't take long to manifest itself. During a family gathering, Teresa and her daughter Beatriz appeared. Their smiles were more like wax masks, unable to hide their contempt. "Congratulations," Teresa said in a cold voice as her eyes examined Valeria and then settled on me with that calculating gaze. "A little girl, huh?" she continued, sarcasm dripping from every word. "Well, let's hope she stays healthy." The words, wrapped in a sinister tone, pierced the air like poison. I felt an uncomfortable shiver run down my spine, but I tried to ignore it. I would not allow Teresa to destroy what was precious to me. Felipe, always seeking peace, squeezed my hand as a silent promise that nothing would tear us down, nothing. Valeria's first months of life were intense. Sleepless nights, constant care, but every smile from her made it all worth it. Until suddenly our nightmare returned. Valeria fell ill quickly and cruelly. Her health worsened so quickly that we barely had time to understand what was happening. Despite all the doctor's efforts, she was gone. The house, once filled with children's laughter and screams, was transformed into a void, a deafening sound echoing off the walls. The silence, once comforting, was now unbearable. Every corner of the house screamed her absence. At Valeria's funeral, the air was thick with pain. Friends and family were present, their faces etched with sadness. But amidst the tears and murmurs of the mourners, something striking caught my attention. Teresa and Beatriz, standing in a corner, without a single tear, without any sign of pain, as if the tragedy were just one more inconvenience for them. Beside the small coffin, their hearts broken, Dia and Ba whispered to each other, a malicious smile playing on Beatriz's lips. Her disrespect in that sacred moment was such a brutal blow that it almost broke me. Can you believe it? Another one is gone. Maybe it's a sign, huh? Beatriz whispered, not realizing that I was listening. Teresa let out a low, cutting laugh, completely out of character. Maybe now Felipe will see reason and leave, she murmured as if my pain were her personal triumph. Those words were like a dagger to the chest. I stared at them incredulously, feeling like I couldn't breathe. They were making fun of my daughter's death. Rage began to boil inside me, louder and more furious with each beat of my heart. I can't believe they're doing this, I murmured to Felipe, indignation trembling in my voice. He looked toward them and his face changed from confusion to deep contempt. I'm going to talk to them, he said, trying to contain his fury as he prepared to intervene. but something inside me screamed, no. This wouldn't be just a conversation. I knew that this moment was the beginning of something much bigger. The rage, the pain, Teresa's contempt, all of it built up a dark energy, a vengeance ready to be unleashed. I didn't know how, but I was certain that this would not go unpunished. And that cruel smile of Teresa's, she had no idea that in the end the real monster was in front of her. It was me. Without waiting, before Felipe could move, I walked towards Teresa and Beatriz, fury guiding me like a storm about to break. Smiling. At a time like this, what's wrong with them? My voice, full of bitterness and pain, echoed in the room, impossible to ignore. Teresa turned slowly, the fake smile disappearing from her face, replaced by a cold and cynical look. "Oh, Camilla, always so dramatic." And she said with that irritating calm, as if I were a child exaggerating for nothing. Dramatic. My voice rose, surprise and rage forming into an uncontrollable wave. They were celebrating the death of my daughter. Philippe's eyes finally filled with anger and disappointment. For the first time he saw the situation clearly. "Mom, this is unacceptable." "You're at a funeral," he said, his voice firm and cutting through the air like a blade. Teresa tried to justify herself by throwing out a pathetic excuse. "We were just talking about it. How happy you must be now." "Happy about my daughter's death?" I interrupted, almost shouting, my grief spilling over and transforming into overwhelming rage. Beatriz. Ever the poisonous accomplice, she didn't miss the opportunity to intervene, her voice laced with fake concern. "Camilla, are you exaggerating? We're just as sad as everyone else." "No, they're not," I replied without hesitation, my eyes burning with all the pent-up fury. "They never wanted me to be happy, not with Felipe or with Valeria. They always wanted me to disappear." The confrontation drew the attention of everyone around us. The room was now filled with a tense silence as people watched unblinking. Felipe stood by my side, his arm around my shoulders like a shield against Teresa and Beatriz's venomous words. And in that moment it became clearer than ever where his loyalties lay, but their disdain at Valeria's funeral never left my mind. Those malicious smiles, those poisonous words, an unsettling feeling consumed me. At first it was just a suspicion, but over time that feeling grew like a shadow that wouldn't leave me alone. Something was wrong, rotten, behind every action they took. That's how the need for justice transformed into something darker. Revenge. I planned every move in secret. Teresa and Beatriz had destroyed my happiness, turned my life into hell, and I was determined. They would pay for every tear I shed. But as I plotted my revenge, I discovered something much worse than I could have ever imagined. One night, while reviewing old documents, I found something that would change everything. A recording of a conversation between Teresa and Beatriz. I don't know why I decided to delve into the past at that moment, but it was as if something was pulling me there. Hearing what they were saying, my world collapsed once again. Only this time it wasn't sadness that overcame me. It was pure hatred. "He's not going to make it, Beatriz. Camilla wasn't born to be a mother." Teresa's voice was full of contempt, cold as I'd always known her. Beatriz responded with a cynical laugh. "Felipe will realize this and finally move on. Maybe then he'll choose someone who can truly give the family what it needs. Strong grandchildren without her problems." My heart stopped when I heard what came next. "I've already taken care of that, Mom. Don't worry, Valeria won't last long. In time, everyone will understand that Camilla is the problem." My breath caught. I couldn't believe what I was hearing. They had done something to my daughter. Valeria didn't die of natural causes, like the doctors thought. Teresa and Beatriz made her sick on purpose, all to prove that I was incapable of being a mother and to take Felipe away from me. Also that he would choose another woman, someone they considered worthy of giving him healthy grandchildren. What Teresa and Beatriz did to Valeria was more than a betrayal, it was a crime, and crimes deserve punishment. The truth about what happened to Valeria was revealed by accident. During a social gathering, I overheard a conversation between one of Beatriz's doctor friends, a man she trusted blindly, unaware that I was nearby. He casually mentioned that Teresa and Beatriz had helped prevent Valeria from surviving, by manipulating her medical care and using specific substances. They had killed her in cold blood to prove a point. To show that I couldn't be a mother. The SOC transformed into clarity. My revenge would be methodical, calculated, and without room for error. Not only would I destroy their emotions, I wanted them to face the system, justice, to feel the weight of every monstrous act. And when it was all over, I would make their lives a prison, albeit one without bars. The first step was to put together a solid case. I gathered evidence, recorded conversations, altered medical records, testimonies from people who knew them well. I contacted a discreet and ruthless lawyer who built the case with surgical precision, all without Teresa or Beatriz suspecting. For months I watched them from afar, pretending that nothing had changed. They thought they had won, but I knew their end was near. Beatriz was the first to fall. The evidence that she had manipulated Valeria's health was overwhelming enough for the prosecutor to accept the case. I reported her anonymously. The investigation began discreetly, but the truth soon came to light. When Beatriz was arrested, her plans and diabolical actions became news. She tried to deny it, but the evidence was overwhelming. The trial was long and humiliating. Each public hearing tarnished her image, revealing Beatriz's true colors to the world. Teresa, now old and sick, did not escape the consequences of her actions either. The recordings of her conversations, the behind-the-scenes manipulations, everything was recorded. She was an accomplice and participant in the crime. They had destroyed my family and now they were destroying hers. The trial lasted months and during all that time Felipe and I remained on the sidelines. We protected our name, and while Beatriz and Teresa faced their sentences, we finally began to build the life we had always dreamed of. Our 4 children were born over the years, each a symbol of hope and resilience. The house, once shrouded in darkness, now vibrated with the joy of children running through the hallways. Our life continued on, free from the shadow that Teresa and Beatriz had cast over us. But the past, as always, insisted on returning. Years later, Teresa, on the brink of death in prison, sent a message to Felipe. She wanted to see her grandchildren. The woman who had once tried to destroy my ability to be a mother was now begging to see my children, the grandchildren she thought I would never have. Hearing her plea stirred something in me, but I also felt a pang of satisfaction. I knew her end was near. She was alone, weak, and desperate. She would not have the dignity to die surrounded by love or family. Everything she had destroyed was now beyond her reach, and that was exactly what I wanted. Felipe, always more compassionate than I, suggested that perhaps we could allow the visit, but I had already made my decision. She doesn't deserve to see our children, I declared with the firmness of someone who knows they've won. Felipe sighed, torn, but he knew he was right. Teresa wanted redemption, but there was no forgiveness for what she did. The day I visited her for the last time, I didn't take the children. I entered the prison visiting room and saw her there, weak and aged, but still with that gleam in her eyes, a gleam of arrogance and contempt. I approached slowly, feeling the weight of each step. "Camilla, please let me see my grandchildren before I die," she said, her voice almost pleading. I looked at her for a long moment, letting the silence stretch before finally answering. My voice was cold and merciless. "You've seen all the grandchildren you'll ever see, Teresa. The only granddaughter you had was Valeria, and you took her from me. Now I'm taking that chance away from you, she tried to respond, but I leaned in closer, keeping my voice low and steady. You're going to die alone the same way you lived. Our children will never know who you were or that you existed. That will be your true punishment. Tears streamed down Teresa's face, but for me it was too late. I stood up without any remorse and walked toward the door. The moment I left that room, the past finally stopped haunting me. When I returned home, I was greeted by the laughter of our children and the arms of Felipe. The weight I had carried for so many years had finally been lifted. Justice had been served. There was no redemption for Teresa or Beatriz, but for me and my family there was a new life, free from darkness.